I delivered it. You delivered it? Oh, it is. Nothing but red ribbon. You go play Chairman. Yeah, you ready? Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the City of Griffin Board of Commissioners November 13th, 2018 meeting. We're going to open with Mr. Truman Tinsley and leading the Pledge of Allegiance, followed by me with the invocation. Please rise.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Special paper. Please join me in prayer. Father, we're here today to ask for your blessings and guidance in the performance of our duties as elected officials. We pray for strength, love, knowledge, and understanding. Help us to recognize and solve the problems that are presented. Make our solutions fair and just to the best interest of everyone. Help us to overcome our shortcomings and keep us united as a team to work for the betterment of the city and its people. We pray in your name. Amen. Thank you. First item of business is to approve the agenda as presented. Do we have a motion to approve?
Motion to approve.
Mr. Brock for the motion. Do we have a second? Second with Mr. Tinsley. All in favor, signal by raising your hand. 7-0. Welcome, sir. First item under presentation and delegation is consider proclamation declaring November to be National Hospice and Palliative Care Month. And Mr. Smith and I delivered that today, so we can move on from that one. Item 2 is to recognize Josh Lee, crew leader with the Street Department, as the October 2018 Strongest Link Award. Dr. Brant Keller will address. Good evening, sir.
Come on, Josh. So you can smile still, just because you're. Josh has worked for us in the cities in our street department for about 11 years. Josh is always smiling all the time, never complains. Josh is, I guess, our lead person who had the opportunity to work overtime, work on Saturdays and Sundays, work 10-hour shifts, come in, and then turn around and put up the lights that you see in the medians. And it was his task, it was his job. Josh is going to be one of our upcoming leaders, I feel, in the street department. Always smiles, took customer complaints. Believe me, when you're out there stopping traffic, putting up those lights, you get to hear a lot of things. Josh did it very professional, no complaints. People said that he addressed it accordingly. Josh is going to be, starting his 12th year with us, and he really deserves this opportunity to be nominated and was selected for the Strongest Link. And we have a plaque for him and a gift certificate, and if you get a chance to see him on the street, tell him thanks a lot. He's a great guy.
Josh, thank you very much for your service. Every morning and evening when we go home with the shorter days, we get to enjoy the beauty of the lights and appreciate your commitment to a Griffin along many, many more years.
You do know there's a tree out here blinking, right?
Oh, I did mention he also, some of the reasons the lights are in and out, he's got the same excuse the electric department has, a squirrel starting.
Oh, it's a squirrel. Squirrels. Gotcha. Thank you.
Dan, do you have a rebuttal?
No rebuttal. Next, we're going to recognize the 2018 Leadership Development Institute graduates. Human Resources Director Niles Neville and Fire Chief Tommy Jones will address. Good evening, Chief.
Good evening, Commissioners. It's a pleasure to be here with you tonight. Miles sends his regrets. He has had a mandatory meeting he had to go to in Atlanta, and he is stuck on I-75. So he asked me to convey his regrets, but we'll take care of it anyway. As you know, our Leadership Development Institute is now entering into its second decade. We're so proud of this program. This is something that the city manager mandated to us a long time ago, and Miles and I, with the help of a lot of other people, including our friends at the county, have put together a pretty good program for our leadership succession plan. As you know, our program is 12 weeks long, 6 all-day classes, 6 power hours, and we bring them together, one for a full day, and then of course a power hour, and kind of rotate it to help out with their schedules. But we cover just about everything you could imagine: basic leadership, public speaking, networking, financial management, how to deal with millennials, everything you could think of. And we just had an outstanding group this year, including many of our friends from Spalding County. It's a great way to build relationships with our friends across the street. So we're going to go ahead and recognize them this morning. I'm going to ask them now if they would stand and go stand right over there underneath the exit sign. And I'm going to ask them, I'm going to call their names, and Captain Thompson's going to hand out their certificates and their T-shirts. We do have a few not with us tonight, but we'll recognize them anyway for the record. From Spalding County, Jordan Andrews. Come on over here, Jordan. We're going to get a picture in just a minute. City of Griffin, Ariel Blanton. Areas with stormwater. City of Griffin Fire Rescue, Brian Brock. And our court clerk, Melissa Brock. From Human Resources, Rick Fox, and I don't believe Rick is with us tonight, okay. From Griffin Fire Rescue, Trent Granger. Did Trent come in? No Trent. He's actually on structure fire as we speak right now. From Solid Waste, Dwayne Howard. From Spalding County Parks and Public Grounds, that's going to be Greg Honeycutt. Spalding County Community Development, Chad Jacobs. Did Chad make it? No, Chad's not here. From City of Griffin Planning Development, Jana Keller. I don't believe Jana's here either. City of Griffin Police Department, Linda Lash. Okay. And once again, City of Griffin Street Department, Josh Lee. City of Griffin Police Department, Gene Matthews. And Metering Department Supervisor, Wayne Mayfield. Griffin Fire Rescue, Andy Meeks. And Citizen Engagement Specialist, Brian Miller. City of Griffin Customer Service, Consuelo Molino. Spalding County Probation Officer, Jonathan Nelms. I don't believe Jonathan's with us tonight. From Spalding County Parks and Public Grounds, Amanda Perkins. County Election Supervisor Marcia Ridley. And from City of Griffin Stormwater, Alexis Robinson.
Thank you.
Very good.
Correct.
All right, we're going to get a picture first, but while we're getting this organized, is there anyone who wanted to make some brief comments to the board tonight? If you do, after your picture, let's, okay, Marcia. Let's have this picture, and then we'll have Marcia or anyone else want to come make a brief comment.
Squish in. Y'all love each other. Just oh, can y'all squish in a little more? Act like you like it. Yeah, all right. Just get one more.
Okay. Okay. Do we have any comments? Marcia, do you want to come say something? Come on up.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
First, I'd like to thank Spalding County administrators for selecting me for such a great, awesome experience. The Board of Commissioners, City of Griffin Commissioners. The training class was very, very powerful. It added value to both my life professionally and personally. Every single class superseded my expectation. It shows us how well, as leaders, and it talks about the characteristics as we need to have to be successful leaders. Chief Jones, who fired us up every Friday with the power of hour. HR Director Neville, who also helped coordinate, gave us rules and policies that we need to remember. So I would like to thank everybody, and especially Griffin, for such a spectacular leadership institute. I have had training throughout the state of Georgia, but this is far more the best one. So thank you so much.
Commissioners, we thank you for your support of our program. We'll keep on rolling with it.
Thank you, Chief Jones. Appreciate your service, and thank you all for participating in the event. Next, we'll review the financial reports for September 2018. Chief Financial Officer Marcus Schwab will address. Good evening, Marcus.
Good evening. All right. We can go over the financial statements. I guess we'll go over the cash balance report and entertain questions if you have any. No?
Yes, sir.
Okay, what about the next report is the local option sales tax report. We're tracking on schedule.
Can't do anything better.
Okay, thank you. The SPLOST collections for the blight program and street program. Any questions?
On track.
Okay, PAYGO is good. Interim statements by fund. Any questions on the revenues or expenditures year to date?
Anybody? Perfectly
Okay.
boring.
Thank you.
Thank you, Marcus. Appreciate it. Next up, we're going to present the annual audit results and comprehensive annual financial report for the fiscal year ending June 30, 2018. Chief Financial Officer Marcus Schwab will address, and David Irwin, CPA of Malden and Jenkins, will accompany his presentation.
Yes.
Welcome.
Thank you. So I have David Irwin here. He's the lead or partner, I guess.
Yes.
Partner on our audit. Anyway, we have lots of good news to share. This has been a very successful audit, and simply because of all the proactive measures that we've taken in the past and continue to develop in the accounting program and the financial reporting side. So I'd like to go ahead and turn it over to David, and he'll go ahead and discuss the audit. Thank you.
Good evening, sir. Welcome.
All right.
Well, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. It's good to see you all again. My name is David Irwin. I'm with Malden Jenkins. Again, I was the partner who oversaw this year's audit of the city's financial statements, and certainly appreciate the opportunity to be here with you all on this rainy Tuesday evening to discuss with you the results of this year's audit. I believe you all have received two documents, one of which is the financial statements themselves, the 125 pages worth. The second, much smaller document is what we call our auditor's discussion analysis. This is an internal document. We prepare it for your benefit. Information on who we are as a firm. It summarizes what I'll be discussing with you all here this evening, and it also gives you a synopsis of some accounting standards that will be implemented in the upcoming years. That being said, as we've done in previous years, for the most part, I'll just briefly be walking you through the financial statements, so if you would have those readily available. The financial statements themselves are the responsibility of city's management and members of the commission. As your external auditor, our responsibility is to issue an opinion on these statements. We conduct our audit in accordance with generally accepted auditing standards and generally governmentally accepted auditing standards, and I'm happy to say that we are issuing a clean or unmodified opinion on this year's report. Now, this is what you want. What this means is that, in our opinion, the financial statements are fairly stated in all material respects in accordance with generally accepted accounting principles. In addition to the clean opinion, we don't have any audit findings to report to you all this year. And again, an audit finding in its simplest term is when we find a deficiency in internal controls over financial reporting. In other words, proper internal controls were not in place that otherwise would have either detected a misstatement or it would place. And without those sound internal controls, the end result could be that errors could be in your financial statements. Financial statements could be correct. So again, we had no such audit findings for this year's report. So congratulations to you all on to be able to come to a board and report that we're issuing a clean opinion with no audit findings. And that's definitely not that's not always the case everywhere we go. So and for a city the size of you all have a lot of activity going on here. All the enterprise funds that you all have, the water sewer fund, the electric fund, all the special revenue funds and capital projects funds. In addition, just keeping up with all the accounting standards that are being implemented year after year. The financial reporting can be quite complex. So again, for you all to have had no a testament to the hard work done by your staff. Kenny and Marcus, again, they're great to work with. They're done right the first time. Marcus, he'll call me throughout the year if he has a question about something because he wants to make sure it's done right the first time. And the year starts to address it. And having that communication throughout the year with your staff, it really results in an efficient and timely. Again, we just want to thank them for their hard work this year. Financial statements. You all prepare what is called a comprehensive annual financial report, otherwise known as a CAFR. Now, a CAFR requires the inclusion of some additional information that goes well beyond the basic financial report. Your CAFR is submitted annually to the Governmental Officers Finance Association, otherwise known as the GFOA. They put it through a pretty stringent review process, not only by their professional staff, but also a committee of volunteers that look at your financial statements. And their goal when they look at your CAFR is not to assess the financial health of the city, but to make sure that there's enough information in there so the readers of the financial statements will be able to do so themselves. So GFOA once again awarded you all the Certificate of Achievement for Excellence in Financial Reporting for 2017. And that certificate is included in this year's report. And I believe this is the 14th year in a row that you all have received this award. So congratulations to you all on that. Again, this document is a very impressive document. It's something that you all should be proud of. Now, if you all turn to page 4 of the financial statements, after our audit, we've clean or unmodified opinion. But page 4 is something called the Management's Discussion Analysis, otherwise known as the MD&A. If you read only one section of the report, I strongly encourage you to read the MD&A. This is written by management. It's 9 or so pages long, and it does really a good job of introducing and summarizing the basic financial statements, as well as providing the reader an overview of the financial activities that occur throughout the year. In addition, there's quite a bit of comparative information in this section, meaning that there's some financial information for 2018 and 2017 that are included side by side. And to me, when I'm looking at this report, the comparative information, it adds a lot of value to the reader. It's a lot easier to understand the good, the bad, the ugly, if you will, the current year activity when you have the prior year activity to compare it to. So again, if you can, take the time and read through this MD&A. Now, after the MD&A, all the city's basic financial are broken up into 3 components. If you all will turn to page 13, you will see the first component, which is the financial statements. Now, page 13 is the statement of net position, which you refer to as the balance sheet. Now, the government-wide financial statements, they provide a broad overview of operations similar to what you would see in a private sector business. Now, all the city's funds are broken in or combined into 1 to 2 columns, your governmental activities and your business type activities. The financial information for the city's 4 component units are also disclosed. Now, as of June 30, $76.7 million. That's around an $18 million increase from prior year. The majority of your assets are your capital assets, net of accumulated depreciation. That's your land, your buildings, your machinery, equipment, your roads of the city. And again, your capital assets total around right at $183 million for the year. That's around a $13 million increase compared to prior years. So the majority of your increase in your assets were your capital assets. The city had total liabilities of around $126.8 million this year. The vast majority of that, $113 million, I briefly want to point out that you may notice we have a new line of liability section of the balance sheet this year titled Net Other Post-Employment Benefits Liability. And if you all remember, about 4 years required to implement GASB 68, and what that did, that required us to record on your books the city's allocated portion of their net pension. Well, GASB has since decided that same requirement is around $919,000. One thing, as was the case with the net pension liability, for the governmental funds, this liability is only reported at the entity-wide level. This is not something that's reported in your general fund, and it's not really something that's going to have effect on your bond rating. This is merely something that you're going to see at the entity-wide level. And another thing to point out, and this is really hats off to you all, you are one of the few governments that have actually been contributing to this plan. If you all were like a lot of the governments that we see that are really on a pay-as-you-go basis, your liability would have been around $8.4 million. So you all being proactive rather than reactive, contributing to this plan, the liability is only $920,000 this year. So again, hats off to you all on that. The implementation of GASB 75 is not had nearly the effect on you all that it's going to have on a lot of these local governments that have not been contributing to this OPEB plan, that have simply been doing a pay-as-you-go. It's going to be shocking all of them. So again, if you all had not done so, this liability would have been $8.4 million. But because you all were proactive, you're only looking at $920,000 liability this year. So that is good. A liability of just under $1 million on your books, but again, it could have been much higher. Does anybody have any questions on that before I proceed? Again, this is just a new standard that was implemented this year, and I just want to make sure that nobody has any specific questions on that. Okay. As I stated previously, the city's debt position increased by $14.2 million during the year. The details of that increase are shown on the next page, page 14, which is the statement of activities, otherwise known. Like the statement of net position, this statement breaks out the city's revenues, expenses in the same manner between governmental activities, and it also includes the financial activity for the city's 4 component units. Now, the second component of this report are the fund financial statements, and those begin on page 15, if you all turn there. Now, the fund financial statements, they focus on individual parts of the fund. That's where the majority of these revenues are received and your funds are expended. So again, page 15 shows the balance sheets for the governmental funds. The general fund ended the year with total assets around $13.2 million for the year, and total liabilities and deferred inflows right at $1.4 million. And this resulted in an ending fund balance of the general fund of around $11.8 million. And that's only an increase of around $156,000 compared to prior years, so overall, a relatively flat year for the general fund. And you know, one thing to keep in mind when we talk about fund balance isn't what you have in the form of cash on hand at year end to spend as you see fit. Fund balance is simply the difference between assets and liabilities, only a portion of which is available cash. Another thing to keep in mind, you know, when you look at your expenditures, on average, the general fund incurs expenditures of approximately $2.2 million per month. So that fund balance as of June 30 of $11.8 million, you know, it's good to see that you have that available fund balance to cover expenditures in November when your revenues are typically before you get your revenue in. So, you know, I think GFOA recommends between a 3 to 5 month worth of fund balance as of fiscal year end. You are right in line with that. So that's, you know, that's a fund balance. It's a good, strong fund balance for you all to have as of June 30. Due to the significant activity of the 2016 SPLOST Fund, that is listed separately in this statement as well. None of the other governmental funds that you all have were large enough to warrant them being listed separately on this statement, so they are combined under the non-major governmental fund heading. Now, if you all want to see any activity of those funds, they are listed separately at the back of this report beginning on page 81. If you all turn to page 16, you will see the statement of revenues, expenses, and change in fund balance for governmental funds, otherwise known as the income statement. $18.3 million this year. That's around $1.2 million higher than prior year. As you would expect, the majority, $11 million. Some other significant revenue sources worth mentioning. You all had around $5.8 million in charges and services, about $715,000 in fines and forfeitures, and around $500,000 in franchise taxes. Midway down that page, you'll see the expenditures for the year, which is around $25.9 million, and that's right in line with what it was in the prior year. It's around a $40,000 decrease, so again, relatively flat this year. Once again, no surprise, the majority of your expenditures, around $14.5 million, pertain to public safety. You also had around $4 million in public works, and around $5.4 million in general government expenditures. And as was the case in the prior years, you know, the general fund did have a significant amount of transfers in from other funds, primarily the electric and water sewer fund. And that netted to approximately $6.2 million in transfers in the general fund for the year. And again, down at the bottom of that page, you'll see the increase in fund balance around $156,000 that I alluded to earlier, for an ending fund balance of the general fund of $11.8 million. A couple other funds I just want to briefly touch base on. All of the cities, or two of the city's major enterprise funds, which are the water sewer fund, water wastewater fund, and the electric utility fund. You know, enterprise funds are used to account for operations similar to what you would see in a private sector business. You know, the goal is for these funds to generate sufficient operating revenues to cover their operating expenses. If you turn to page 22, you will see the income statement for these funds. And, you know, as you can see, the water wastewater fund and the electric utility fund, they continue to do quite well. Water wastewater fund had operating revenue of around $7 million this year, while the electric utility fund had operating income around $10 million. So again, those are strong. That's strong income, and that's definitely what you want to see out of these two funds. The third and final component of the city's financial statements are the footnotes. Those begin on page 29. The only significant change in the footnotes this year is some additional disclosures that we were required to have reported under the implementation of GASB 75. So your other post-employment benefits footnote went from being 2 to 3 pages to 10 pages. We can thank GASB for that. But other than that, there really weren't any significant changes. So I won't go into those in detail unless anybody has specific questions. A single audit that is required when you all in excess of $750,000. I believe the city had approximately $7.9 million of federal. Those are by federal grant being on page. The case with the financial audit, we were issuing a clean or unmodified single audit. And again, as was the case with financial audit, we don't have any audit findings report to you all with a single audit. So that concludes my presentation. As you can see, and look at this report, there's quite a bit of information in here. Just what I think is important to you all. But again, if there's anything that I didn't touch base on that you have questions, please don't hesitate to ask. Again, this year's audit went extremely well. And I just want to thank your staff for their hard work this year. We certainly appreciate the opportunity to be of service to you all and in the future.
Thank you, Mr. Irwin. Are there any questions from board members or staff? All good. Marcus, your team did a great job. Again, as always, thank you for your service. And Mr. Irwin, appreciate your company's
Thank you. Appreciate it.
commitment to us. Moving into citizens' comment. At this time, the commission chairperson opens the floor to comments from the audience. Comments should relate to a specific agenda item not listed on the agenda for a public hearing or to a concern within the jurisdiction of the city. Commission meetings serve the purpose of conducting city business and are not a forum for the opinions. The chairperson reserves the right to limit comments to matters germane to city business and may refer speakers to the city manager or other staff for left side like to come before the board. Is there come before the board? Very well. Moving on. Consent agenda. We have no public hearings tonight. Moving to consent agenda. Item 6, looks like we were all at the meeting, so do we want to take consent agenda items 6 through 12 with one vote? Yes. We have a motion by Mr. Tinsley to take them all. Do we have a second? Second. Ms. Murray with a second. All in favor of the consent agenda, please raise your hand. 7-0 on the consent agenda. Item 13, consider approval of and consent to the assignment contract from Dependable Waste Services, Inc. to Best Way Specialties, LLC. Central Service Director Phil Francis will address. Welcome, Mr. Phil.
I thought Ms. O'Connor was going to do this.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
It's fairly elemental. What we have, it's been about several months ago that Doug Matthews approached me and said that since there is an assignment clause in the they could be run a lot more efficient and be able to save themselves some money if they kind of set the city services off to a separate LLC to where they could focus on that service and streamlining their operation, which would be able to influx more capital into their side, so it actually would help us a lot more. And I brought it to everyone, and we spoke about it, and it seemed fairly elemental since there is an assignment clause in there, and we recommended for approval of it, so that's what we're bringing it to you.
Perfect. Any questions or comments? Do we have a motion to approve the item?
Motion to approve, sir.
Mr. Brock with a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second, Mr. Tinsley. All in favor, signal by raising your hand. 7-0. Thank you, Mr. Phil. Item 8 is consider approval of a holiday schedule for calendar year 2019. Do we have a motion to approve?
I'll make a motion.
Ms. Murray with a motion. Do we have a second?
Wait, what?
Item 8, consider approval.
Wait, that's on the consent agenda.
Oh, I'm sorry. Thank you for taking care of me. Item 14, consider approval of a contract between the City of Griffin and Community Services, LLP, for the City of Griffin to bill Sun City Peachtree residents for wastewater. Do we have a motion to approve?
I have a question. Oh, yeah, I make a motion to approve with a question.
Ms. Flowers with a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Ms. Ward. Question to Dr. Rank Keller.
Yes, just in general, you don't have to come this far. We're understood it right. We're billing, taking out our and then giving.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, we have a motion, a second. Any other questions? All in favor, signal by raising their hand. 7-0. Thank you for correcting me on that. Item 15, consider on first reading a request to amend the Code of Ordinance of the City of Griffin, Chapter 2, Article 4, Division 2 purchases. Chief of Staff Jessica O'Connor will address. Yes, ma'am.
Good evening.
Good evening.
As we presented in our workshop back in October, we are wanting to update the procurement, or what's now called the purchasing ordinance with the City of Griffin. Purchasing is sort of an antiquated term, so we'd like to update that to procurement, which would encompass more of the actual items that go on in that department. The spending authority for the city manager, as well as what we can do without having to competitively sealed bid to meet the state statute. So we are asking that you...
Questions? Do we have a motion to approve?
I'll make a motion to approve.
Ms. Ward with the motion. Do we have a second? Second. Mr. Tinsley with the second. All in favor, signal by raising your hand. 7-0.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Connor. Item 14 is consider approval for all commissioners to attend the 2019 JMA Mayor's Day at Atlanta Hilton on January 25 through 28, 2019. Do we have a motion to approve?
Motion to approve.
Ms. Ward with the motion. Do we have a second? Second. Mr. Brock with the second. All in favor, signal by raising your hand. 7-0. Item 17, consider approval.
I have a question. What is non-pro-tom?
I've never heard that before. But
Retroactive.
retroactive.
After the fact.
Retroactive. After the fact, Chairman Holberg's attendance at the 2018 MEAG Mayor's Summit at Lake Oconee, November 9 through 11. Approved.
You already went. I'll make a motion.
Ms. Flowers made a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll move to.
Ms. Tinsley, Ms. Murray with a second. All in favor, signal by raising your hand. All against, like sign. 7-0. Thank you. We got a closed session, so before we do that, we're going to open up to comments from the city manager.
I wanted to congratulate Marcus and his staff on a wonderful audit. Marcus sometimes takes a little ridiculous, but this is exactly why he is that way and why it pays off to be that way. So this is like top of the line for Marcus and his group to give us such a great audit. We appreciate that. Also, David and the Malden, so great to work. We work, so we appreciate them. Tomorrow morning at 9 o'clock,
Yes.
code enforcement tour. Wear a sweater. Get here a little before 9. We've got a van. We're going to leave out at 9 o'clock. And we'll be out and about for a little while. So be prepared, and I will see you in the morning.
I call window seat.
Pardon?
I call window seat.
She's got a shotgun.
Citizens Government Academy graduation is this week. It's hard to believe that it's been 10 weeks since we started, but we're moving the graduation to the College and Career Academy. As you know, we're having some work done at the Welcome Center. So it is closed up for the next 2 to 3 weeks. It'll open back up December the 1st. The chamber's been relocated and everybody's out of the Welcome Center. So we'll have our graduation Thursday night at 6:30 at the College and Career Academy. The Archway Intergovernmental Retreat has been tentatively set for February 27th and 28th. So if you'll put that on your calendar, and it's tentatively to be held at Callaway Gardens. We would like to have a workshop on December the 11th, since we only have one meeting in December. If that's okay with you guys, we'll schedule a workshop to cover a couple of things that morning. I would like to tentatively set your annual goals workshop for the normal workshop in January. I think that's the 22nd, would be the 4th Tuesday in January. If that's when you'd like to have your annual day-long workshop, we can plan that if that's okay with everybody's schedule. If you'll let me know.
That workshop was on December 11th at 9 a.m.?
Yes.
Okay.
And then our goal session, the normal workshop day in January.
It's
4th
22nd.
Tuesday in January on the 22nd. And that's everything I have for now, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Mr. Whalen?
I have done.
Mr. McCord?
I did have one thing. I talked to a gentleman at the Spalding County Recycling Center on Carver Road, and he made a very good observation. I said I would pass it on to Dr. Keller tonight. looking at putting sidewalks up Carver Road to Griffin High School. We've got a lot of foot traffic, a lot of kids that walk to and fro to the high school, and a lot of people walk to those two convenience stores on Carver Road. So I think it'd be a real good idea to look at that. I know it would be rather costly, but it may be worth it. And that's all I have.
Okay. Ms. Murray?
Well, Marcus, thank you for helping us shine. Thanks to your staff. And again, Brent, thanks for the award that you recommended for Josh. I think he's an outstanding employee of ours, and the lights look great, and it's a great night to be in Griffin. Thanks, everyone, for coming.
Ms. Flowers?
No comment.
Mr. Brock?
No comment, sir.
Mr. Tinsley?
Nothing to add.
Ms. Ward? At the VA conference, the mayor of Sylvester was very appreciative in terms of our work crews that went down to fight with Hurricane Michael, and he was very said that the skill set of our employees was the best of the best, and their work ethic, and was very proud to have them down there, and just want to express his appreciation. They also talked about in one of the classes is that be on the lookout over the next decade that electric cars will be the thing that we need to prepare for in regards to having charging stations and everything else. So electric cars, here they come. They say that that's going to be the new rave, and that as an electric city, we need to be prepared to have outlets for folks to get charged up quick and shop at the same time. And with that being said, we move to item 18, pursuant to OCGA Section 5014.34 and Section 5014.21, to consider entering executive session for the purpose of authorizing negotiations to purchase, dispose of, or lease property, and for the purpose of meeting with attorney to discuss pending potential litigation. Do we have a motion to go into closed session?
So motion.
Ms. Ward with the motion. Do we have a second? Second. Mr. Tinsley with the second. All in favor, please rise.
They would have had to pay more, and they would have had to charge more. So it's not as
Brown and South here at Tuesday. One of the regular states of Rose.
The item that we voted on is written out of the contract.
Brown and
Okay.
If it's a same, after they pass on, that makes sense.
Oh, yeah, being that, yeah.
Ready, get ready for Thursday. We'll talk soon.
About 6. Yeah, Jessica had said she
Come on, Ms. Murray.
She's got a driver.
Oh, 7:15. Do we have a motion
To adjourn.
to come back out of closed session?
We did.
We already did.
Do we motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Ms. Ward with the motion, Mr. Tinsman with the second. All in favor, please leave.
Thank you.
Where are we meeting at tomorrow morning?
Oh, yeah, we're here.
Where? Right here.
Who's bringing the coffee and donuts?
You are, Truman.
I'm a poor boy.
Did you say that?
I thought we were right on. What's the deal?
Ground. Is it just a ride-along program? We're not going to walk around anything?
We might get out. We might get out.
You can pin me in the kid.
The backstrap, that was one of those things that
Ms. Ward with a second by Mr. Tinsman.
My son said that to my husband the other day. He said, how big of a are you?
Let's go. Stand
Time
out
to
there.
go. Good night. See ya in the morning.
No.
3 hours.
I got another grandparent day. I gotta be back here by 11:30.
That was Pastor Tracy from that new church that came in here. I didn't recognize him after he left.
Who wants to know?
Well, we'd already, I wish Drew had said that we had already sworn in. I didn't know we had. Didn't remember us doing it. That would have been a good way to start. We've already voted.
This break is always
I thought it was just bent. You said it was bent.
It was bent with a team falling on top of it.